Welcome to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. This show is about Plymouth County real estate. Our headline for the month was Refinances on the Rise, Sales Good Despite Seasonal Decline. This is a show being taped in November on the October activity at the Registry of Deeds. So let's go right to the numbers. First, you're going to see a bar chart of sales of property, deeds. A deed is what people record to transfer property. There were 965 deeds recorded in October, more than the 887 in September, slightly less than the 971 last October. Sales continue to lag 6% behind last year for the first 10 months of the calendar year. Next, you're going to see a listing of sales of property from every one of our 27 communities. Plymouth has the most sales across Plymouth County, with Brockton second. Every town had sales activity. Mortgages have been the story for this month. There's been a large number of mortgages recorded in October, the largest in 7 years. Clearly, people take out mortgages in order to purchase property, but they also take out mortgages to refinance their property and get a lower rate, and there's a lot of that going on. There were 2,658 mortgages recorded in October, more than the 2,302 in September, up 53% over last October. And for the first 10 months of the calendar year, mortgages are up 15%, again, primarily due to refinancing. We always follow the foreclosure issues, particularly since the meltdown in 2008. Foreclosures, thankfully, are very low. There are only 31 foreclosures, meaning foreclosure deeds, in October, slightly less than the 33 in September. A foreclosure deed is when a lender has taken back property from someone, usually for non-payment. Foreclosures are 46% less than last October, and for the first 10 months of the year, down 44%. A foreclosure notice is the document we receive that basically shows someone is in trouble. If you're facing difficulty, try to reach out to a federal housing counselor as soon as possible. You might be able to modify the terms and payments of your loan and stay in your house. But foreclosure deeds recorded for October were 59, a little more than the 50 in September, 22% than last October, and down 23% for the first 10 months of the year. You're going to see a listing of foreclosure deeds and notices by each one of our 27 communities in Plymouth County. Brockton usually leads that list, and other communities have all had foreclosures or foreclosure notices over the month. As far as things happening at the registry, we're electronically recording documents in land court. Our next free training session, which is open to the public, is Thursday, December 5th. The first Thursday of every month, we do a 2-hour training course, how to efficiently search our site, and that is for free. Be aware that recording fees are going up on the December 31st, increase in recording fees to fund community preservation projects across Massachusetts. I have a great guest in the next segment of the show. Attorney Steve Triffletti of Triffletti Costa will talk about the role of an attorney in the real estate conveyancing process. So we'll see you next segment. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we always do something educational. We've had many realtors, conveyancers, we've had surveyors, appraisers, anyone involved in the real estate community, including builders. I have a great guest who's a repeat guest on my show, Steve Triffletti of Triffletti and Costa, and they're attorneys here in Plymouth, though your service area is much larger. Welcome, Steve.
Thanks, John, for having me again.
Always good to see you. So why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about you and how you became a lawyer?
Well, thanks, John. So I grew up in Kingston, attended Silver Lake Regional High School, and after graduating there, I attended college and then law school at Boston College. And immediately after graduating, I began practicing in Plymouth. And I've been practicing there ever since for over 40 years. We have a general practice. I'm joined by my law partner, Alden Costa, my son, Franklin, who's also a graduate from Boston College, and we have a full-time title attorney, Chris Kelly, who is a frequent customer at your facility.
One of our frequent flyers, we call them.
Yes.
Yeah. Great. And I know you do a variety of things in the law, including, I've known for years, a lot of real estate.
Yes, we do a lot of real estate, and I probably didn't mention, but we're also active in the town, and certainly in the town of Plymouth, I've served as a town official for over 30 years, and for the past 28 years as the town moderator. So that certainly relates indirectly to real estate in that the town meeting certainly deliberates and often votes on bylaws and zoning bylaws.
In Community Preservation Act.
Absolutely.
Projects, yeah.
Every year.
Plymouth's done a great job with their Community Preservation Act. And you may know recording fees are going up on December 31st to fund additional CPA projects. We collect surcharges on every document that gets recorded, send it off to the state general pool, and they distribute it to the communities that have the CPA. And the match has been going down every year because places like Boston have joined the CPA and gets divided up more. So this is an effort by the legislature. In addition to $20 million appropriation they just put in the supplemental budget, which I think is almost through the legislature, and raising the fees to fund it into the future.
So the Community Preservation Committee in Plymouth historically has been a very strong, active committee, and every year we're presented with proposals for affordable housing, for open space, and as well as for historical preservation.
But your town moderator role, just to stay on that for a minute, also includes naming people to the Finance Committee?
Yes, so I actually name the 15 members of the Advisory and Finance Committee, 5 each year. They serve for 3-year terms. And also in Plymouth, the moderator also has responsibility for a charter review committee. And so at least once every 5 years, I appoint a charter review committee to review our town charter. And I've done that several times with several charter review committees.
So I thought it would be good for you and I to have a conversation about what a attorney does in terms of a closing. Let's assume in this particular case, you're representing the lender. And there are viewers out there, hopefully, that are pending getting it into the homeowners market. And a lot of them see this as a mysterious process.
Yes.
So why don't you start with what is your first contact from the bank on a particular loan?
So we do represent lenders as well as buyers and sellers, and when we're the lender's attorney, we normally receive what's called a title order from the lender in which they provide us with the information for the buyer, and they ask us to review the title, which means going back 50 years and doing a chain and determining whether the title is clear, whether or not there are any encumbrances, and if there are, taking steps to clear it, whether it be to get a payoff for a mortgage or a lien, or whether it be to get some other type of curative document if there were missing discharge or an improper discharge.
Right.
Keeps us very busy, happens all the time. We also concurrently notify the buyer who's the borrower, that we're representing the bank, and we request certain information from them, and also try to help them prepare for the closing. We also, in our firm, offer a courtesy review of the offer and the purchase and sale agreement if we're representing the lender. So in fact, if we get the title order early enough, or if the borrower contacts us because he or she knows that it'll be assigned to us, then we can review the offer and the purchase and sale. And that's very helpful because those are legally binding contracts, and they in part greatly affect the closing, such things as the mortgage contingency and whether or not the buyer is able to comply with that or needs to get some type of extension in order to complete that. So if it's a single-family dwelling, we order a plot plan usually. Condos, that wouldn't be necessary. We order a municipal lien certificate from the town in order to make sure that the taxes are current and any other municipal charges.
So that the new owner gets a clean title relative to, no discharges remaining, nothing, claims on the property, and the fact that there's no taxes.
Absolutely. We want to make sure it's clear in every respect. Now, the plot plan is not a full instrument survey, so there are some things to which we take exceptions because absent a visual inspection, we wouldn't know in certain cases if there are encroachments. But a plot plan can sometimes help to disclose certain encroachments or violations of the zoning bylaw. So we begin all of those things early on, and then
So you send a letter out to the borrower?
send a letter out to the borrower, start the title.
Buyer, yeah.
Yes, start the title, and also request the lien certificate. And then we certainly work together with the buyers, and if there are brokers involved, and the bank in order to try to pull it all together to schedule the closing as contemplated under the purchase and sale agreement. As we prepare for the closing, the buyer has to make sure the home insurance is in place and any funds they need to bring to closing. And now, unlike years ago when we had many last-minute adjustments on the settlement statement, now the closing disclosure rules are such that the buyers get it several days in advance, and they have a chance to review it, the numbers, and it's making for fewer adjustments at closing, though sometimes there may be a few outside the closing, things like a fuel adjustment or personal property, things that may not be directly a part of the real estate, but maybe some adjustments between the parties. So we get ready for the closing, and then when we have the closing, there are many documents that are prepared. The ones that I tell buyers are most important would be the closing disclosure statement and the note. The promissory note is the contract which sets forth how much they're going to borrow and what the interest is going to be and what the monthly payment's going to be. And then as it relates to you in your capacity, there's a mortgage that secures the note, and that gets recorded over at the Registry of Deeds.
So I'm fascinated by the early process when the purchase and sales, the offer to the purchase and sale, how fast that goes back and forth without even a paper document for the realtors these days.
Very different, John, from when we first started, because now with iPhones and iPads and, it's happening 24/7.
Yeah.
And people have an expectation that they want this done and they want it done as soon as possible. And so we make sure that happens.
Yeah.
We have a good support staff. My son Franklin actually is the lead attorney now on handling the review of the offers and the purchase and sale agreements. But you're correct, we can do e-signing and things remotely so that it's not only for the people locally, but we have a transaction right now we're scheduling next week, and the buyer, in this case the borrower, works for ICE down at the border, and so that she won't be coming up for the closing, but we can still do a lot of things remotely under a power of attorney.
Sure. No, that's pretty amazing, and I know a lot of states are doing remote notarization. Massachusetts hasn't quite adopted that yet, but everything is coming.
Mm-hmm. We can, though, handle things within 24 hours. We can email documents to people. out of state, they can sign them in front of a notary, they can overnight them,
Right.
and we get them the next day.
Right.
And in the case I was just explaining, a lender can approve an instrument of power of attorney such that if the borrower can't and the buyer can't come to closing, they can appoint someone to sign a lot of the other documents that the lender would allow to be signed under the power of attorney.
So let's talk a little bit about the two things you say are very important. What we call the settlement statement, the old
Yes.
HUD 1, what is it called now?
Closing disclosure
Closing
statement.
disclosure statement, and it has to be out in a certain number of days before the closing.
Yes, yeah. The buyers receive it early on in the process, and then again more than 3 days prior to
3 days, yeah.
the closing. So it includes the adjustments, the various fees that the buyer may be paying to the lender, that might be being paid to the Registry of Deeds, escrows, the legal costs, as well as adjustments between the parties. There may be a tax adjustment. We're taping this in the middle of November, and the tax bills are quarterly, and the November 1 bill presumably has been paid. So if we had a closing today, there would be a credit from the buyer back to the seller if the seller's already paid the November bill, which covers tax payments through the end of the year.
Right.
So,
So you have a municipal lien certificate in hand, which isn't exactly up to date. So how would you check that from receiving it to today, or if the closing was
So-
today?
if the one of the parties said, well, we already paid the tax bill and it doesn't show on the lien certificate, we'll call. However, there are times when it can't be confirmed by the municipality that it's been received. So if there's any doubt, we're going to collect the funds, and then if necessary, we'll refund if in fact post-closing we find out that it was paid. But certainly for buyers, we have to be sure that when they take title to the property, that it's free and clear in every respect.
So where do you conduct most of your closings?
So our office is located not far from the Registry of Deeds. We're also at Exit 5, and many of our closings are conducted at our office. Of course, you offer closing space at the registry, and we often also close at the registry. And there are times when, if we're involved on behalf of a seller, we may travel to another office, since the custom is usually that we close where the lender's attorney is located. So a seller's attorney or even a buyer's attorney that's not a lender's attorney would travel to the lender's attorney's office.
And you have done some electronic recordings?
Absolutely, particularly in other parts of the state where it isn't that close to us. So there is an added cost to the electronic recording. It's nominal, but most of our Plymouth recordings are done directly at the registry because our title attorney is there every day. However, I mean, I just did a closing yesterday, and I believe the closing was scheduled at 2:30. You record till 4. So I did the recording documents first, and we then sent one of our staff to courier the documents, a mile down the street to your facility, and they were able to get on record by 4 o'clock. That's always the goal, is whenever we close, whether it's at 8 a.m. or at 3 p.m., we want to try to get on record by 4.
The same day?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Any tips to people who are buying through a bank other than what you suggested?
Well, the main thing I would say is that people should consult with an attorney. And if, in fact, the lender's attorney is not going to be providing any type of review or support of an offer, purchase, and sale agreement, people should contact a lawyer and have it reviewed. These are legal documents. Many lawyers offer an initial consultation at no charge. So because of the importance of reviewing it and making sure you understand, there are cases where you can't necessarily make changes. The most common example would be bank-owned property. Often banks, when they're selling property that was in foreclosure, they make a purchase and sale agreement available and they say, that's it, no changes. We still want to be able to explain that to the buyer so they understand, the contingencies that are involved in the agreement.
Yeah, I hope people are getting the message from your comments that they should not sign a document that substantial without having a review of it by an attorney.
And the best reason for that would be you don't want to put your deposit at risk.
Right.
Whether it's $500 or $5,000, there's no reason to put money at risk if you have a good purchase and sale agreement that offers safeguards for the buyer.
For you to get out of it.
Absolutely.
Bad home inspection.
So
something,
the home
you know.
inspection contingency, the mortgage contingency, there may be other contingencies, the sale of a home
Right.
where you need to sell one house in order to buy another house. So any number of those things can be what we call escape clauses if something goes wrong and you can't move forward. You don't want the seller to keep your deposit if through no fault of your own you're unable to proceed. But in order to do that, you have to protect yourself with language that's appropriate, and you have to follow the timelines that are built into those contingencies.
So as part of the closing, and you represent the lender, you certify title to the buyer?
We do. We issue what's called an owner's certificate of title, and that, again, has certain exceptions. So while we may have gotten a payoff for any liens of record, we don't certify as to things that may affect the property that are not on record, that may be only caught with a visual inspection, or with respect to changes in the law. You know, there are cases where we may have certified title a few years back during the foreclosure crisis, and the title was good, and then subsequent to that, the case law changed with some cases that came down that we know of that changed the law. But people can still be protected if they have the owner's title insurance on top of the certification. We always suggest that people have owner's title insurance.
So this has been great information. I'm getting a little bit of a signal that we're moving along to our end, but I wanted to have you share your opinion on buying title insurance.
Well, we feel very strongly about it in the sense that we would say, don't buy the property if you're not going to get title insurance. Right. It's a one-time fee. If you've got a mortgage, there's a simultaneous rate, so it may not be that much more. And I say that to anybody, regardless of whether I'm involved in the closing, because I know the problems that can arise with titles, and the title insurance is there as a safety net. The title insurance company will provide what we call affirmative coverage to insure over a title issue. And so it also really increases the marketability of your property when you turn around to sell it, because if anything comes up where a buyer's attorney or a lender's attorney says, I'm not comfortable with this particular document in the chain of title, the title insurance can insure over that and give everybody comfort in knowing that it's going to get to closing.
It's all great information, Steve. So can you share your contact information with our viewers?
Yes, so we can be reached at 508-746-1464. And our email address, my email address, fst@plymouthlaw.com. And we're happy to talk to people. We provide initial office consultation at no charge.
Always good to see you.
Thanks, John.
Say hello to Franklin.
Okay, I will.
See him
Thank
around,
you.
around some of the different events.
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
Great. Welcome back to the Register's Report. My name is John Buckley. I'm the Register of Deeds of Plymouth County. In this segment of the show, we always do something lighter in nature, talking about some of our great Plymouth County and Plymouth Colony history. The holidays for the month, daylight savings time, ended on the 3rd of November. Election Day in some towns, in cities, were the 5th. Veterans Day, the 11th. Thanksgiving coming up on the 28th, and Black Friday on the 29th. We're going to talk about a couple of our notable land records related to the holidays. Grover Cleveland, the only American president to be elected to office, defeated and returned to office, was a landowner in Manomet in Plymouth. He loved spending time outside, and he hunted and fished in Manomet and stayed at the Idlewild Hotel on Manomet Bluffs. In 1884, he began his first term as a second president of the United States, caused quite a stir by marrying a very young girl, 21 at the time, and he lost the re-election to Benjamin Harrison over prohibition and other issues, but he came back and won again, and again is the only American president to be elected, defeated, and re-elected. He also spent time down on Cape Cod, in Buzzards Bay. He owned a home down there, and he very much was a person that people remember. Very active in Buffalo, as a matter of fact. Next is a woman by the name of Deborah Sampson. She fought in the Revolutionary War. She dressed up as a man so she could serve in the service. There's action going on up in Beacon Hill right now to try to get a statue of her outside the State House. She's very well known. She was born in Plimpton. Her likeness is on the Plimpton town flag, and there's a plaque in her honor on the Plimpton green. She fought and was injured many times. She was later discharged from the Army by General George Washington, married and moved to Sharon. Certainly is someone that people recognize as a veteran in very unique circumstances in the Revolutionary War. A last notable land record from the county side is John Alden. John Alden moved to Duxbury after being part of the Mayflower arrival. He was a cooper on the Mayflower. His property in Duxbury is very interesting because of the boundaries that are described, from the burnt walnut stump to the oak tree. He married another Mayflower passenger, Priscilla Alden. If you haven't read Courtship of Miles Standish by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow, that talks about how Miles Standish tried to woo Priscilla Alden. John was a messenger, and Priscilla fell in love with John. Do so this Thanksgiving. The Alden House still has a representative of the prior building that was there, and a title to that 2.5 acre land is acquired by the Alden Kindred of America, who maintain the house. And the Alden Kindred is one of many descendant of the Pilgrim arrivals. There are millions of people across the country who are related to our original colonists. And last but not least, one of our Plymouth Colony records that shows the boundaries established for the town of Marshfield. Marshfield was one of our earliest towns in Plymouth Colony. And you can see on the left-hand side the transcription of that particular document, and on the right-hand side, a handwritten decision by the colonial court to establish that boundary in the handwriting of William Bradford. Those documents are fascinating. We happen to have those in a temperature humidity controlled vault on the second floor of the Registry of Deeds, and we show one of these at the end of every month when it's usually our busiest time at the Registry of Deeds. So I want to thank PAC TV for their continuing allowing me to do this show, to share with what most people is the most valuable asset in our staff, Lorna Green Baker and Christine Richards at the Registry, helping me put this show together. So happy Thanksgiving to all, and we'll see you next month.